And we are live. How are you, Marie?
I'm great. How are you, Gianna?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. I am super excited about this workshop because I think so many people are intimidated by technology, right? And the many definitions of big data, artificial intelligence, and many entrepreneurs don't necessarily know how to harness its power for their own gain. So the title of this workshop is Simple Uses of Technology in Your Business.
Yes,
Um, and I'm so excited to see this. Thank you for being a part of this.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and take it away. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, please send your questions our way. And at the end, we will be moderating them.
Okay, awesome.
Take it away.
All right, will do. Thank you so much, Juliana. So, hey, everybody, thank you for joining me today for simple uses of technology in your business. We're going to talk about three different things. One, context. I am not a big believer in training via PowerPoint. I love training using real life examples. So today we're going to go through different tabs on my Chrome and show real life examples of different simple uses of technology. Because even though I'm a programmer and I've been programming for 30 years, I love not having to code. If I don't have to code, I won't code. It's great. So there's a lot of really great things out there that you can actually use in your business if you don't know how to code, if you don't know anything about how tech works, but you need to get things done. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So first thing I'm going to do, let's see, share my screen here. We're going to talk about what to do with all the ideas in your brain. So the first thing we're going to talk about are tools for uh, mind meld, sort of data dumps. How do you get all the stuff, all the ideas in your brain out into something that can be organized? And so one of my favorite tools is a tool called Toby. And what Toby is it's better than bookmarks. So you can see here on my screen, I have lots of bookmarks. I actually love my bookmarks. But I have a lot of anonymous things in my brain that aren't yet bookmarked and aren't yet put together. So you can see that Toby is actually a tool used by many different companies you know and love, and they have members in over 144 countries. And you can see all the different examples of Toby here, but I'm going to show my Toby just as an example of my brain dumps that I have. So the first thing is, you have to have ideas, right, to run a business. And then when you have those ideas, it's not always, uh, it doesn't always make sense to put them into systems or sort of do things right away or make things happen right away. But you need to just figure out a way to sort of like organize it and put it together, right? And so in my Toby, you can see I have 154 savings. I really got to clean it up. But these are my brain dumps every day or every other day. So you can see there's lots of different things in here. I even have one, I think, in here for my shopping wish list from the last couple of months with different tabs in it and things like that. And then you can even see the tabs I have open now can be saved into a session. So essentially, it's a Chrome extension. You just literally click on the Chrome extension and you hit Save Session. And then from there, it will literally close all the tabs and put them into this format. And then when I want to reopen them, I just hit Open Tabs right here. And then if I want to share them with somebody else, say I have a brain dump with somebody else, I can literally go here to the Share tab, hit Share, and then send an email to any of my teammates or share my collection, right? Very, very, very low tech way of sharing information and keeping track of information. And then if I want to move it around, I can move it around and I can actually drag it. See if it'll let me drag it. So it's taking a moment. I can actually drag these around and move these in different ways. I can get rid of them even though they're saved in this collection. I can edit the name of them if I want to keep them under a certain name. And I can also organize special boards just for particular functions of my business. So if I want to know, I want my customer support team to actually have particular tabs open, I can make those make those tabs for my team and then share them. So they're really, really amazing tools available. Amazing tabs available that you can put together and then sort of like, okay, here's how I want to make sure that I have everything at my disposal every day. If you have a checklist of things you need to do or a checklist of apps you need to do every day, totally super, super helpful. So that's why they call it better than bookmarks. So it's just under gettoby.com or the Chrome store. And we're going to talk more about the Chrome store in a minute. The other thing I want to talk about, just again, a very simple example. All of you know Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox or Box. One of the things that is super important to keeping your business in order is having a library or having what we call an SOP, right? It stands for Standard Operational Procedures. And so one of the things we do in our business and what we counsel all of our startups to do and all of our entrepreneur clients to do is to have a drive, right? And to have a drive that is a library um, where you have all of the aspects of your business organized. So you can see here in our drive, we have many different departments, the different areas of our business, and they're shared with different team members right here. So you can see there's different team members there, and then you can see there's libraries, there's timesheets, there's all kinds of things there, right? So making sure you have a drive that has how you operate your business and making sure you have it so that it's shareable with other people on your team. That's the other thing, right? So you have your brain dumps that are shareable. That's kind of like the unorganized information, the organization that changes every day. That's sort of like more kind of out there, right? Then there's the organization. There's the organization of the information that you have that you need to keep organized so that you can talk to the bank, your investors, executives, other team members, right, that are critical, the mission critical parts of your business, right? So that's finance, that's HR, that's sales, right? And then the important thing is if you don't know how all those things are supposed to function yet, you want to start putting together what we call a library, right? And a library for us is a template, right? These are all the templates that we use and we recommend that our clients use every day. So having not just the folders of the things that you know, you want to have folders of resources for things that you don't know, right? Things that you need help with, things that you need reminders for, things that you need guides for, right? So every time I'm searching the internet, I'm reading an article, I'm doing anything, right? So I always allocate a certain amount of my day in my week, if I can't do it every day, to learning new things, right? And then we save these new things in the library. And the library is for us to remember. And then some things are just things I don't always remember, right? Like I don't remember Facebook image sizes. And if I'm instructing a market person to do Facebook image sizes, here's a template for me to do Facebook image sizes. So we don't have to guess. It doesn't have to take so long to do different things, right? And then we have different pieces here for all kinds of things, right? And so if you hit us up in the comments or you tag us in any of these broadcasts or replays, we'll send you a free template so you can ask about the template so you can kind of see what we're talking about, right? So there's all kinds of different things in here. We have things for co-founders, we have marketing strategy, Facebook groups, Facebook marketing, fundraising, human resources, marketing and sales, online summits, if you ever want to know how to make an online summit. We download templates for that, presentations, financing, all those fun things. So there's so many different tools and different things out there that you can use, right, that people have, right? You want to save those into a place where you can readily access them. You know how to organize, you know how to put everything together, and you have a really great system for growing your business, right? So you have to allocate that time. So many times we get caught up and we're hustling, 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 and we're not being strategic and we're not being resourceful. Those are the other two parts you have to have, right? You can't just be hustling 100% of the time. You have to have time you set aside to get resources, learn new things, and then form strategies, right? And you have to take that time. We always counsel about half of your time should be in that space, because you can hustle and just be spinning your wheels, spinning your wheels, spinning your wheels, spinning your wheels, and never really getting anywhere because you're not getting that influx of new knowledge and new information that will help guide your business, right? You're in survival mode. Survival mode is great. It does work, right? But it's a harder road if you don't split up some of your time to develop resources. And then we also counsel our small business customers with Data 360 to say, hey, we make sure that make sure your pricing actually reflects that time that you need to be strategic and resourceful, right? Don't make your prices so low or so your margins so thin that you don't have time to learn, take a break, and strategize, right? So there's that balance of having these things and then making sure you have these libraries and resources in place. In Google Drive, we recommend highly. Dropbox, we also use for these, and one, because they have backup systems, because they have a thing called version control. So if you mess up on something, there's you can actually roll back and get the old version back. And it also has, with Google in particular, that power they have in their search engine is also in G Suite. So anything I type in here, it will not just find the name, the title of the document. It will also it'll search inside of those documents and sort of find all the things that make sense inside of those documents. It'll also look at things by the team members that we have. So all these things are super important. These sort of basics are super important to keep the lights on, right? How does it all work? So that's the library piece. That's my soapbox about the library. The next thing is we have Gmail, right? And I'm going to talk about Gmail over Microsoft Office. We are partners at Data 360 with both Microsoft Office, Microsoft for Microsoft Office and G Suite. But they're really two different products for two different markets. So I love talking about small business owners about G Suite because of a few distinct items. So one of the things that we're going to talk about first is you'll notice if you look at this G Suite, this is one of our support boxes. Um, it doesn't look like everybody's G Suite, right? It has all these kind of extra tabs and icons. It has a pause inbox on here. And you'll see a few extra icons over here. And you'll see tabs and things like that. You also notice that in my Chrome, right? There's a lot of extensions and different things in there. And these are all different tools that we use every day to run our business, right? That are faster, cheaper, better tools than, say, for example, more traditional things like Microsoft Office, older softwares like Oracle or Salesforce or all those different ones, right? So G Suite really has become very competitive for small businesses to really operate on the same level as corporations. So this is it's really exciting. It just takes some getting used to, right? And it is, believe it or not, it is simple. So one of the things that's really great about G Suite and Google Drive and all those different things is that you have extensions for everything. You have add-ons. And so what that looks like is, see that plus sign I just clicked on the side? There are some really amazing things in the marketplace, right? So this is, if you don't know, G Suite actually just became Google Workspace. So Google Workspace Marketplace, there are tons and tons and tons of add-ons that you can add to G Suite to make it work really, really well for you and customize. So you'll see like things like here you have Box, you have a thing called Todoist, which is about to-do lists, adding those in there. You have all kinds of signature things. You have uh, canned responses, so you can do, so we use these a lot for our customer service. Canned responses for sharing things, sharing attachments, sharing different items. So for example, if you have the same kind of order for your business or the same kind of request all the time, You can just do canned responses and save those. And then G Suite has a template or what's called a snippet as well. So there's just all these fun things, right? And what's great is when you click on anything on here. So say we want to look at Organize Me, and you want to get the G Suite add-on, you can actually click this launch window, and it has actually, let me go back. It has always has like a window, a demo, a video, all those fun things. And then when you click on the launch window, you can actually see every single thing that is happening uh, for G Suite, that adds on the G Suite's main window, right? So that means that it adds on either here on the side, it adds on here at the top, or it adds on over here on the sidebar, and it's sometimes it's all three. So for example, we use a tool called Streak, which is a CRM tool. Streak adds this little window here. So if I click here, this is how I manage my Streak install. And then if I click Streak here, that actually does the same thing, but if I click Streak here, if I click an email and click Streak, it will actually load up all the different boxes and different areas for me to organize emails and be able to customize emails to our customers and to our community members. So it's a fantastic tool for that, right? And it'll show a little bit of what it looks like. And then on the third window for Streak, you have actual, like all the people here that work with us in our business. And you can see there's different ways of different colors that we use to organize all that, but that's inside of G Suite. So that's what's really awesome about G Suite is you don't need to go out there and keep searching for like fancy pieces of software. You actually can use these extensions that are really simple to add functionality to your email, right? And then you can add different things. So this particular tool, it works just like a spreadsheet. It literally just, you can go across. It looks like a spreadsheet. You can type directly in here. You can also open up, oops, you can open up additional windows to the person's profile, which is awesome. And then there's a whole nother set of windows here. So the reality is you have kind of what's great about some of the Google products is you actually have like full operating system. So G Suite, Gmail is actually like a full operating system. Chrome is a full operating system. It's just super fantastic. And so there's all these wonderful things that you can do without having to spend a ton of money, right? So Streak, for example, 19 bucks. Can't beat that. There are lots of other tools that you can add, lots and lots and lots. And so that's where this marketplace goes into effect. So you want to make sure and look at, really, again, take that time to get your resources, right? So we talked about the brain dumps. Then we talked about the organized data, the thing you need to do to like make the business run every day. And then we want to talk about productivity, right? So making sure you understand what tools are out there to help you be more productive. Again, so we don't want to go, again, no 100% hustle time. Want to take half our time and look at strategy and resources. So, right, so this is the resources part again. So we want to look at the resources and then we want to add it strategically to our G Suite. So we want to make sure that you have all the aspects in here. So you can see what's great about the G Suite Marketplace. Looks a lot like our library, right? So it's organized by accounting and finance, administration, right? ERP and logistics, which means how do you run your day? How do you run your logistics to fulfill orders? HR and legal, marketing analytics, and sales CRM or customer relationships. So that's like your customer service. Again, all great organization tools. And then there's some other productivity tools, right? So there's some creative tools where you can add things in there. There's web development. There's office applications, right? So not just meaning like Microsoft Office, but like applications to run your office every day. So how do you connect Box and Dropbox if you don't want to use Google Drive to G Suite? How do you begin to do signatures? How do you do calculators, right? How do you make sure your teams can collaborate together, all those fun things. And then there's task management, which is really great, right? So the task management we'll talk about also with one of my favorite tools. But there's many different task management tools, whether it's a note-based one, full project planning, what's called a Trello board, if you're familiar with Kanban boards, or task list, right, which is like a to-do list, or any of these are all plugins to G Suite, right? So this is about how do we then move from brain dumps to resource to what you don't know to making it productive, right? And then looking at how do we add productivity, how do we add efficiency to every single aspect of the business, right? So this is about taking things that you would normally do manually in meetings and phone calls and all this stuff and adding the software just very strategically to handle those things or make them more efficient, right? Whether you're working solo, you got a small team, you aren't working on a lot of financing, that's why these things become really important. These resources are your lifeblood. This is like your financing. So you don't want to just rely on financing, you want to have tools to use. So let me actually elaborate a little bit on also what's available, right? So in addition to just the regular sort of marketplace tools, a lot of the providers have sort of mega suites of tools, right? So one of them is the in the actual apps themselves. So if you look inside, so actually let's go back just to show an example. So this is for basic ops. You can see it's a G Suite add-on. You can see all the reviews here, whether people think it's cool or not. You can see all the different things that they offer here on the summary. But you can also see if there's something else that 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 particular publisher offers. So basic ops here, you can see they have a website, so you can go to basicops.com, and then you can see all the different tools they offer in relationship to G Suite and potentially other software tools as well. So this takes, to do this homework, right? You need to do these, get these resources. You need to look at things, research things, kind of figure out those planning aspects, right? So there's kind of like what you're doing now and how you can improve it in the future. So you want to say you want to spend equal times in your current reality and your future reality, right? Because that's how you keep the engine going. So a bike has two pedals. You want to make sure you're pedaling on both sides. You're not just pedaling on one side. That's kind of like where you're just hustling all the time. You're just really pedaling with one leg, and that makes things hard. So you want to pedal with both legs, and then you really want to get an electric engine for your bike, which is software, right? Productivity. So you need to spend time on this particular part for that. So once you go to their site, so I happen to be working with Cloud HQ right now. You'll see that there are lots of apps in here that go inside of Gmail. They do different things that Gmail doesn't have natively, right? That people need. So like saving emails to PDF, we use that one. Sorting Gmail inbox, formatting subject lines, adding greeting cards to Gmail, right? That's fun. Adding YouTube clips to Gmail. Creating a Gmail co-pilot. We're helping somebody help you with your Gmail. Screenshots, doing screenshots, backing up emails to AWS, adding auto BCCs, right? So you don't have to keep typing in blind copy to whatever. Different snippets, again, web clippers. I mean, there's just this one publisher has so many tools, and I was like, where have I been? I haven't seen this really until 2 days ago. I just found this particular one. I was like, this is great to share for the webinar. And there's so many different ones about syncing and backing up your Gmail. And then you can just put these together, and it's actually really simple, right? It's just a sort of taking the time, focusing, and then implementing, right? And making sure you have that implementation happening. The other thing I want to go over is the actual Chrome store. So you can see here that in my Chrome, I have tons and tons of extensions, right? I'm like an extension nutcase. I love extensions. And so extensions are really great because there are so many different kinds, right? And just like the G Suite marketplace, there is a Chrome marketplace. So if you want to know how to get to it, you just basically go to your browser and you type in Chrome marketplace. And you'll see here it has the web store. And then just like G Suite, right? This is kind of like another level of productivity, right? So this is like if we're talking about G Suite as one level of productivity, the next level would be to do it with your browser, right? And find those tools that are there. And you probably have had these conversations with people. How'd you do that? What happened here? But besides just the general conversation, you don't want to do it, you don't want to wait until you're just stuck. To do it, you actually want to do it when you have that planning time and it's not an emergency, right? So then okay, I have these tools, I know this is what I'm going to pick. And then you may find you might outgrow those tools or whatever, so you just want to constantly have that going. And that's the same with this particular um, function here, right, with the web store. So you have all kinds of different things here for Chrome, right, including Zoom schedulers, Bitmojis, custom cursors, all this fun stuff, right? So um, not even just the things that are for business, but things that may help you work from home better, right? So they have a tool here, a grouping here of extensions that are just work from home. And so you want to go, okay, great. Here's all my work from home stuff. What would make me happy? Let's take a look at it, right? And you can take a look at any of these. And again, there's usually a video, there's usually a slideshow, there's usually reviews, so you can see what people think of it. You can see how many users are using it. So in this case, 7 million users are using Keep, so it might be worth something. Um, and then there's different support and things you can get for it and any related tools. So you can see what else is there, right? So I go, oh, this mindful break might be useful for me because I'm always trying to find a way to meditate. So then you say, oh, okay, great. Here's a little mindful break exercise. So I can just click add to Chrome. That looks good to me. I add the extension and then that helps my day run better, right? So it kind of takes you full circle where you're looking at your Chrome as a part of the whole ecosystem, right? So you have your brain dumps, you have your library, you have your productivity tools, you have your Chrome extensions that basically say, hey, here's how I like to run my day. So outside of kind of like your bookmarks. And then the last piece is if you want to graduate, right, to actual productivity software. So the last thing I'm going to actually go over is a piece of software called ClickUp. And so one of the things that's interesting, so ClickUp is a suite of many different tools. So let me actually break this down. I should put this up here. So I'm going to put in here ClickUp competitors, right? So there's a whole group of productivity tools, and you've probably heard about them, right? So you probably heard about Right, you've heard about Monday, you've heard about Asana, you've heard about Trello and Airtable, Teamwork, Team Gantt. And if you haven't heard about those things, welcome to this world of productivity. So there's tons of those, and there's lots and lots of um, sites that kind of tell you how they all work, right? So like if you're not familiar with G2 about reading about software, this is the place where you read about software. And you really learn what people do and do not like about each of the things. You learn about whether it's easy to set up, right? So is it easy to set up, more usable, easier to admin compared to ClickUp, right? So some people say that, and you can see how many people do reviews, right? So Trello has 10,000 reviews. You look at Meister, it has 154 reviews. Again, this is the time you spend to sort of pick out your tech stack, try things out, right? Some things have free trials, some things don't have free trials. I really look at these reviews, right? When it says, slower to reach ROI, that's probably not as good as I want, but maybe people prefer it for some reason. So let me just take a look at what the reviews are. right? So you want to have this kind of time to go through here. See, you see here, this is interesting because Todoist, actually, we've seen this 3 times today, right? We've seen it in G Suite, and we've seen it in the Chrome extensions, and now we're seeing it here as a productivity tool. So that might be one we want to check out, right? Because we're seeing it in lots of different places. And then there are also other ones you may not have heard of, right? So for example, ZenKit. I have never heard of ZenKit, but it looks like there's a newer one. But it looks like it's got good reviews, even though it has a few. Um, and some people, they talk about what they like about it, right? So this is the same as, kind of the formal way of talking to people about your choices and what might be interesting and things like that. So you want to take a look at all these and kind of see, oh, what are the pros and cons? How do these things work? What do they have to do with my business? How do I want to run my business every day? What am I most familiar with? What do I need to learn? Right? And so, part of that strategizing is learning, right? So if you're breaking down the strategizing part, so first you have the resources, and then you need to try stuff out. You need to make room in your business and time, right? So we don't want to keep pedaling with the one leg. We want to make sure we have strategy and resources in that other 50%, right? So 25 and 25. And within that strategy, you want to learn things. So you want to pick out some resources and you want to learn about them, right? And you want to do that so that you can become really masterful at operating your business every day, right? That's what all this software is here for. It's not here to just give you tech PTSD, as we call it, but it is here to help you learn how to get those two pedals going and then build out that engine and have that engine become a whole big old fleet, right? Of wonderful cars and trucks and all the things that need to run your business every day, right? All those resources that run your business that take you down and take you all the way, take you down the road and take you all the way through the whole world, right? And so you have to learn how to build up all these different little engines to make things work every day, right? So that's why we recommend that. So let's take a look at ClickUp. So ClickUp has a few different pieces, and I just want to say quick, Giuliani, let me know how I'm doing on time.
You're good. Feel free to continue.
Okay, because I'll just talk and talk.
Perfect. Keep on talking.
So let's go into this software, right? So this is kind of, so if you take Google Drive, bookmarks, G Suite, right, Chrome, all these different things together, you have then there's a point where you can graduate into what's called productivity software, and there's kind of different levels of those, right? So we talked about all the alternatives. We of course don't have time to review everything today, so you can comment and ask us about anything you've been checking out, and we can help guide you in the right direction. So there are what are called spaces here. So let's just go into the first space. So pretty much with every productivity software, they have different aspects that are in the software, right? So like in this case with ClickUp, what I like about them is we don't actually use them in our business. We use another system called Monday, but I like this system because it has certain features to it that I think are really good for small businesses. So that's why I recommend it. But lists basically are your list, right? And it tells you kind of like, you can sit here and just put together a task. You can put together, so you can put together any, so just put test task, right? And then you can put together, you can click on it and you can add all these details to it, right? So this is where you really start to get effective. And that's where the strategy comes in, right? So you're looking at your tasks, your subtasks, right? And this is like the strategizing is almost like the brain dumping, but it's targeted at something. It's not just brain dumping like I'm exploring things and I don't know where to put it. It's putting it into order, right? And then knowing that you can take any of this information that you add into here, right? So if I say, okay, I have to do 5 things, right, to get this task going, to complete this test task. So action items. So I'm going to do test A, and I'm going to create a task. Test A. And I'm going to create a task. So test A is in here now. And so then from there, so I go open, test A. And then from there, I can put all the to-dos related to test A. So just like the to-do list, if you decide to use that one, you can start to translate that into more sophisticated software later. So we have that. We have all the attachments, so I can add attachments from Google Drive. So you'll notice some commonalities here. Dropbox, OneDrive, Box, right? Just like we do in the extensions, we can use those for the same purpose here in the productivity software. So, the point here is you can build up to this kind of level, right? You can do all these different things. You can add comments for people to find. You can also assign it to people. You can mention people in tasks. You can assign comments, right? So this is where you start to really have a team that needs to work together. So let's take a look at the examples here. So here we have run AdWords campaigns. So some of you may be already trying out Google AdWords or Facebook ads. This is a tool to actually help you organize yourself and communicate with others about those tasks instead of sending mountains of emails, right? So that's what a lot of entrepreneurs do in the very beginning is they send tons and tons of emails with no real organization to it, and then they're like drowning in the emails, right? So that's why you don't want to do that. You want to have either extensions to your email box to help you organize it inside of it, or productivity software that connects to your email box and sends you reminders and things like that. But you want to make sure you just don't just have mountains and mountains and mountains of emails. Even I've had the same issue, right, until recently. So making sure you have progress, you're tracking your progress, you're making notes about how things need to happen, right? You can share these things publicly with people, so you can put together a actual link to share with anybody anytime. So things again don't get stuck in email. Adding different comments, right? Adding different files, right, to the same issue, right? So say you have creative for your Google AdWords you want to share, right? Being able to print these things out, being able to show the history of how things work, right? That's where the productivity really comes in handy, right? So for example, with us, we just landed a big client this year, one of the biggest clients that we've had in our whole history. And someone messed up, right? And we were able, because of our productivity software, we were able to go back and track everything that happened with the account, show it to the client, show them where they messed up, and then come up with a quick solution. Otherwise, we would have been in some kind of dispute process or claims or whatever, right? And it's because we're tracking things properly and we're completely organized in our productivity software, right? So there's a point where you hit a certain level and you're fulfilling certain orders and you need this kind of level of organization. So that's why you want to start with the other tools and build up, right? You build up that muscle, right? So it's like, first you're pedaling a bike, right? It's like, oh, well, I guess if you started in preschool, right, you're doing a tricycle, then you're doing a bike, right? Then you're doing maybe a motorcycle or a car, a jalopy or something, and then you're going up to a regular car. Then, hopefully, eventually you have that dream car, that sports car, right? And that's where this productivity comes in. This is like the sports car for your business, right? And it can get very sophisticated. And then there's even bigger packages you can get into. But the point is, these are actually fairly simple for you to deploy, to answer, right? So literally you sign up and all of this is already ready for you, right? You already have all these samples. You already have all the tabs and you can make more. You have videos that can teach you how to do everything, right? So that learning time. The same with the rest of the software, right? So we have boards. We can show things that are in progress. You have a part called workloads where you can actually, if you go into the more advanced level of the product, you can actually see what people are working on. If you have teams and things like that, right? So you can do a lot of the Chrome extensions and add-ons if you're working solo, but once you start moving into teams and you need to communicate with other people, then productivity software comes really, really in handy. So workload is a big one in resources. So when you start paying money, you have overhead, you have monthly things you have to do. You want to see who's being productive. And then timelines, you can see how the timelines are going with each department. Are things unscheduled? Or are they overdue? Again, you can share the links, print them, all those fun things, right? There's always like these three buttons right here. If you feel lost by software, my tip is always to look for these three little buttons right here, right? That's one. And the second thing I always advise our clients and our team members on, look for the part that has a question mark or says help. That will tell you everything. And I know it seems counterintuitive. It seems like, well, I should just be able to click and do what I want. No. Use the three buttons and use the help, right? They're both important. Nobody's watching. You can do it, I promise. So make sure you use that. But so in here, you have all these different timelines. You have the three buttons, right? So you can see what can happen here. And then you have, which I love about ClickUp, you have mind maps, right? So you can actually map out things that are really great for your actual business, right? So this is an example of a mind map. So it just automatically made a mind map for the things that are in here, which is really, really awesome. And so you can then look at, okay, here's the task, here's what's going on. I get a good visual overview, right? I can kind of move things around and kind of see what is it that I really am doing right now in my business on a visual level. So that's really cool. That's one of the fun parts about what's available. And then you can do all these customizations with it. Again, see these three little dots right here. They're right there. And then you can also add other views, right? So there's lots of other views in here. So basically, if you want to see it in a doc, if you want to see it in a table, so say I want to see my whole world in a table instead of all these other views, it's just too much for me, then this is the table, right? And it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to put everything together. And so that's what's really exciting. I can just add different things. I can go, okay, when was that created? It was created by me. It was created by the software. When is it due? Right. What's the start date? I can add task ID. And then I can take all these things, what's great, and move them around. I can go, okay, let me move the due dates over here. Let me add the start dates over here. I don't like to look at start dates and due dates first. It just sort of makes me anxious. Created by, I know it was me, so I can put that last. I'm really concerned with the task ID, the task name. Maybe I want to add something else. Let's see. What else do we want to add? Let's see here. Oh, we can do row heights, which is good. Look at that. So there's all these like fun things. I'm trying to see how I make how I do another column. Yeah, there we go. So you can actually, the other tip, I forgot one. So three dots, right? Help bar, right? And right click. So right clicking on things is super helpful because it gives you options in most productivity software. Outside of the browser window, it actually gives you other things. So if I want to insert something to the left or to the right, I can insert things here. It gives me fields, right? So the point is, don't be scared. You have to have this time to explore and try things out, right? Try different views and things like this. So what's fun about this is, this seems like a lot of different things, but all this is are different views on the same information. It's the same information you can have in G Suite, right? It's the same information you can get from the marketplace, right? And all the things in the marketplace. It's the same thing you can get from the Chrome store. It's the same thing you can get from all these tools from ClickUp, right? These are just all ways to organize information. That is what your job is, right? You don't necessarily have to code, but you want to keep your organization organized, and the tools are there to help you, and they're very, very easy to use. You just have to take the time, breathe. I know it's a lot going on this year. It's a lot going on with coronavirus and you know who and the election and all that stuff. It is a lot, but you can breathe and take the time, right? Just take a little quiet time and explore how you can make it better. If you already have a team, how you can make it better for your team. If you already have tools, how to pick better tools, right? Maybe there's some stuff you don't like. How to, go through the videos and the tutorials. Everything is on YouTube. Everything. Everybody has videos and tutorials. So make sure you pay attention to those, right? And make sure you always are looking for resources and you're keeping that library fresh, right? And you're keeping all the things that you don't know or you don't remember or you can't know in a particular folder or make sure you have a way of getting that information on the regular, right? So you're not in panic mode, you're not stuck. Make sure you do all these things, right? Because this is why the software was invented, right? To help us all be more productive, help us grow businesses and grow economies and change the world. So make sure you do this every day. It's really, really important. Um, so I'm gonna, make sure you guys have access to these links and you can check them out. And I think that's my story. I'm gonna stick to that. So I'm gonna pull it back up to Juliana and stop sharing my screen and see if we have any questions.
Thank you so much for that. So we do. And
Awesome.
so I'm just going to read them in order this time,
Okay.
right? And merge the ones that are similar. So I have a question about switch tasking. Do you have a favorite app to minimize switch tasking? And what is your favorite plugin for Outlook to keep track of tasks over email?
Yeah. So with Outlook, so let me actually. The coolest thing about Outlook, just like Google now, so Microsoft sort of took a playbook from Google, or maybe Google took a playbook from Microsoft. Anyway, I'm not gonna pick sides because they'll just come after me and ask me questions. If you type in Outlook plugins, right? I'm not an Outlook user, but if you type in Outlook plugins, you can see, or they're called add-ins, right? The type ones for Outlook that are there for tasks. And the trick is just going to be to take a look at those, right? I'll add that also to the comments and the descriptions in the video. But there's literally a blog that says 20 best Outlook add-ins for 2020, right? And you have all the ones that are there. You can literally check them all out, and it tells you about. You just go to the ones that say task, right? And there's always something there for tasks. So it looks like I'm just looking at the page. There's the same ones we just looked at, right? So there's Trello.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people like Trello. I can recommend Trello. It depends on whether you like those little squares or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like Trello.
Or Asana?
Trello.
Trello. Okay. Why?
Yeah. A lot of people like Trello because of the squares. I'm not a big fan of squares. I kind of like the ones that look like a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So Meister Task is there, is a plugin for Outlook. Pretty much, it looks like everything that's a plugin for Outlook, for G Suite, is also now a plugin for Outlook, which makes sense.
Right.
So make sure and look those up.
So a lot of productivity falls through the cracks when you're just moving from one task to another and another and another. Do you have something to help you with that?
Yeah, I actually use Notepad on my Windows machine. I use Notepad to keep track of all the different things that are like temporary, right, during the day. So like even though we have productivity software, we have whole teams working with us and all that stuff. I have everything from like my groceries, anything random that's not in a browser window, anything that pops out of my head. I literally have a text, it's just a little text thing that I run down every day, and it keeps me like paced on what's realistic to get accomplished, and then I can kind of say, okay, team, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going. But I literally just keep like hey, don't forget to go take a walk. Don't forget to
Feed
eat
the fish today.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I move the stuff around. So sometimes I'll move it. I'll be like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to eat. I know I'm supposed to do this. I know I'm supposed to move this task or call this person. I put anything that's like a super hot potato, like, oh my God, this thing has to get taken care of. That goes on my notepad,
Do
right?
you operate in flows in sprints?
Yeah, we do now. So for those of you who don't know, so I'm a co-founder of a business called Data 360. I'm the CIO, so I'm in charge of all the systems. And in the beginning, I mean, it was like very painful. We're almost 6 now, so it's not so painful anymore. But it was at one point so painful to sprint. Sprinting was not happening because we just were like we had our service and then we're moving into making products and we're just now starting to launch those products to the public. But in the beginning, we were just like okay, we were in hustle mode. We were like doing that one pedal. And we knew what it was we wanted and we knew what it was we were selling and we were selling it successfully, but it wasn't necessarily as strategic as it could have been looking at that in hindsight. So yeah, we were not sprinting in the beginning. And I've learned that that's okay. We've gone through like Y Combinator programs and different programs, and well, there are the things in the beginning. You're doing the things that are not scalable. You're doing the things that don't make sense. You are pedaling with one pedal. But the trick is you want to get out of that mode as quickly as possible. You want to start using the other pedal
Yeah.
quickly, right? And start getting, that's why you have your mentors, your advisors, you have your resources, you have your strategy time, you have your learning time, right? And all those things, you have to hit those marks at least once a week. And if you're not hitting those marks once a week, like we were hitting them every 6 months at one point, to be honest, we were like not changing very fast. We were kind of like, okay, we're gonna bang our head against the wall. But then it went up to 3 months, then it went up to 1 month, then it went up to week, 2 weeks. And now we're every 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, which is I've learned normal, right? So if you don't know, Facebook does their sprints every week. Snapchat I think does every 2 weeks or something like that. Most companies every week do their updates,
And can
so
you
that's pretty normal.
and here's a quick question that just came up. What is a sprint?
What is a sprint? So a sprint is you have a set of objectives. So you kind of have like a big goal, right? And then you want to break it down into different chunks. And so hopefully, right, in the beginning, it does not happen. So don't be alarmed. But eventually your goals will be broken down by quarter and by month and by week and by day, right? And so a sprint is part of a system called Agile, which you can look up Agile.
Mhm.
What it means is you have a set of objectives for that week that reflect your overall goals, and you want to get those things done, right? It's like a task list on steroids. So the sprint is a collection of all the tasks, right? And then once you have all the tasks, then you can achieve different objectives. And then if you don't achieve those objectives, in traditional agile, you have a backlog. So you have the things that you didn't get done, and then you need to figure out where you're going to fit all the things that you didn't get done in the next sprint, right, or in subsequent
Mhm.
sprints. And then if you have multiple sprints, then from there, that's called an epic. And an epic is basically the overall goals and projects and objectives and everything in one plan. It's like your quarterly business plan or your weekly business plan. I know that probably sounds like super scary for those of you who have put together a business plan and think that's it, I'm done. I'll never do the business plan again. Or I have a pitch deck, great, it worked. I'll never do it again. I have really bad news for you. It just keeps going on and on and on. So that's where the sprint kind of fits into the piece.
And how is agile different from Scrum?
Yeah, so they are sort of related, right? So let me get out my little cheat sheet because it's, you know, a Scrum Master, right, um, is, a person that focuses on, very specific things for, let me say, uh, let me actually start back. Agile is very much related to software, in software development, whereas um, it Scrum is more focused on how the software is actually delivered, right? So Agile is more about development, and Scrum is more about delivery. And so there are actual like real comparisons between all these different things. And then there's I talk about Kanban boards. So there's like Agile, Scrum, Waterfall, and Kanban, right? And
So there's
so
different
these are
methodologies.
all like really technical terms that in practical reality don't necessarily mean anything when you're super early. Um, I'm trying to think, kind of like the best way. I would say, Scrum is kind of like Agile's cousin. It's just another model for building out software that is very much similar
Is
to
it like
Agile.
the older and wiser cousin, or like the younger and more foolish
The
one?
younger and more foolish.
Okay. Okay. And what about the waterfall? Is that
Now,
like,
waterfall's like your grandpa.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, waterfall's like your grandpa. Like if you're doing waterfall, you're just like, whoa, it's just long and slow and painful. And we say painful because it's really a big guess. So agile is what's called iterative. Scrum is what's called iterative. It means you have certain feedback loops that are there. So when you build a little something and then you send it out to the public and then you get feedback. You build another something, you send out to public, you get feedback. Waterfall, you try to build perfection, and then it's like the Coliseum. It's either thumbs up or thumbs down. And once it's thumbs down, that means you wasted all your time and money.
Is anybody doing waterfall nowadays?
People, okay, some companies it is really appropriate to do waterfall. So, for example, biological research,
Mm.
right? Super sciencey things cannot necessarily be agile,
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
because there's a buildup, right?
Yeah.
If you're making an engine, you can't really be agile.
Yeah.
You're doing mechanical things, it's hard to be agile. It's just it's just one of those things where like if you're building machines, like full big machines, or if you're doing some other really complicated things, like, and there is literally a buildup. So you might get feedback during your research process, but it's really has to be waterfall
Hmm.
because
Okay.
you're maintaining all this stuff. But most businesses, most startups are not waterfall.
Awesome. So, um, here's a question. So I'm building a content website of environmentally friendly products. How can I use these concepts? And what do you recommend for building a content database?
So you can use these concepts. So that library I showed in Google Drive, that's like your fundamental building block, right? Saving the products that you have, making sure you have different folders for each product, right? So your library is not necessarily like always the operations part. It's also like how are you going to maintain inventory? Where does it come from? Um, how is it in stock, out of stock, that sort of stuff. So the productivity software will keep track of all the moving parts, and the Google Drive will keep track of the hard documents like the product descriptions, the pictures, the things that you need to keep track of to maintain the content on the website. Because there isn't, in most content softwares, there isn't a queue. There may be draft mode, but you want to make sure you're not just like putting everything into the software and it's kind of messy. You want to actually make folders in like a Google Drive or a Dropbox or a Box
So
to keep
I
track
think
of what's going on.
this person is just cataloging products at this point.
Yes.
Um, what can you talk a little bit about Notion or things that could potentially
Hmm.
plug in to a website?
What was the last part? What kind of plugin?
Like, so I think they're looking for like to store content and then use that to just plug
Oh,
into.
to plug in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's okay. So there are systems. So when we do e-commerce, we recommend Shopify.
Yeah.
We don't recommend like a WordPress. But there are e-commerce plugins for WordPress. I'm not the super WordPress expert on that sort of thing, but I recommend Shopify because they have a lot more tools and a lot bigger ecosystem that is designed to keep up with content and products and inventory and all that stuff. Whereas WordPress is a little bit hit or miss, right? And it can have some problems.
So some people are watching this on Facebook, and it's very appropriate they ask, what app do you recommend to fight social media addiction?
Social media addiction, like Headspace, Calm, any of those, right? And there are actual apps out there that turn your phone off. That will turn your phone off for certain amounts of time.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and then you need
and
the password, and if you don't know the password, you have to wait like 4 hours.
yeah, you have to wait. There's ways to kind of like trick your mind
Yeah.
into stopping, right? And make sure that it's really, I mean, it's like any discipline. It's an agreement you have to make with yourself, right? This is
Yeah.
what I've learned about getting older. Um, you have to make these agreements with yourself, and you have to have integrity with yourself.
Yeah.
And that comes to making schedules, making apps, getting tools. What's great about software is they're just tools to keep you in integrity with yourself, right?
Yeah.
What's your vision? How do you talk to people? When are you taking a break? When are you going for a walk? Right? All that sort of stuff. I really use software quite intentionally and somewhat spiritually to keep myself in order, right? And go, okay, here's where I talk to my yoga teacher. Here's where I meditate. Here's where I'm keeping track of. Here's where I keep track of the team. Here's the record of what I've said to the team in the past that I need to honor, right? And keep track of, right, and all those different things. So I really use it as a place for I why I'm passionate about being a CIO is because it helps our team kind of keep track of all these things.
Yeah. So here's a CRM question. So how do I know when I should graduate to a CRM instead of just using a spreadsheet or Google Sheet for my contacts? That's one question. And we have another CRM
Hmm.
question. That's we're
Okay.
currently using Salesforce as a CRM. What's a good way of tracking engagement? And is there a CRM that's easier to customize?
Yes, there's, yeah. I have an immediate reaction to Salesforce.
Oh no, we use Salesforce.
Yeah. When I would say after you dealing with, if you're having to track more than 100 people, a CRM is appropriate. Um, because it's just tracking in a spreadsheet becomes really gnarly, right? And we've even dealt with customers even when they're above 50 people. It's hard to track the details. It's hard to see and understand the details without CRM software. Um, yeah, there are. I always remind people that Salesforce is like a super old piece of software now. And so there are tons and tons and tons of tools. But what I would say, the one that I love the most that is like low code, they actually give you like $1,000. I can place that deal. I can give you that deal code,
Thank
Juliana.
you.
Is Airtable.
Yeah,
Airtable is fantastic for so many things, and a lot of really big businesses use it. And we even use it to keep track of our contact details because there's not a really great software in their libraries. They have a whole thing called the Airtable universe. And it's all the app templates that people have bought. So you don't even have to like reinvent. You don't have to like make the template in Airtable. You just pull up all the ones they have and then boom, it's done.
nice.
And it's content library stuff. You can make content libraries and CRMs and
That's awesome.
everything.
Okay, so that's the last technical question I'm going to ask you, I wanted to also, I mean, quite frankly, you're one of the coolest people I know, like, period.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I wanted to talk to you as just an uber successful woman who has made it in tech. And when we spoke last time, I think we were gonna do like a 15-minute call, and it was like 2 hours and a half, which was
Yeah, it's
awesome.
something like that.
Yeah. And you said something that really stuck with me that I wanted to highlight. So you said they need to know your whole story. Every bit of who I am is relevant. Every bit of who you are is relevant. Can you talk a little bit about that, and how you can present yourself as this powerful woman of color in tech, and just walk in the room and share how that's powerful, and a part of what makes you perfect to be in that room.
Yeah. Ooh, okay, that's a lot. Okay. So, how I kind of I love to use analogies about nature, right? And the thing you can know about nature is if you think about the plants on the earth, or even just something simple like a leaf, there are millions of different kinds out there, right? And each one is necessary for planet Earth to do something, right? And it's the same with us, right? We may all be people. We may be Latina. We may be, I'm a mixed race Latina. Juliana is Latina. Somebody's black. I'm black, and all these different things, right? But we all have a unique purpose for being here, right? Just like the plants, just like the animals, just like the countries, just like everything, right? We all have this unique contribution. So the key is to get self awareness of like, what is all this stuff, right? What is all this stuff in my story? What is all this stuff in my personality? What are all these things in my interests? And how can that be constructed as a recipe? You're the master chef of your life. How can that be constructed so that you're a triple A star restaurant, right? Where do you put that, right? Where do you fit in to everything, right? So everything in your story is super relevant, super relevant. This is what I can tell you. Also, if I get older, everything makes sense. If you ever see the movie Slumdog Millionaire or any of those kinds of stories, right? Everything in your story actually does make sense. It's just whether you embrace it and you have a smooth ride, or you resist it and you have a rough ride, right? So the more you resist about yourself, the more you resist about your story, the more you kind of like don't want to deal with things, the harder it gets, right? Because the universe is just going to keep coming back at you. God is going to keep telling you about yourself because this is the journey of being here, right, on earth. Is what is you're here for a reason. There's no denial about that, right? You can make an extremely negative reason, or you can make an extremely positive reason. You have a choice. You have free will. So if you embrace who you are, you take responsibility for who you are, right, and everything that you bring to the table, and you don't let distractions and people sort of tell you who you are,
Hmm.
right? You actually develop self awareness, and you
Hmm.
develop abilities, right? And you inquire and you seek until you understand. Then the ride gets actually really good, right? And you can be that hero, right? It's like I was watching Harry Potter with my daughter over the over the week of the Halloween weekend. We watched four of the movies, and I was just like, this is such a great story because you see how Harry becomes very self-aware. He becomes aware of his own powers. He becomes aware of his abilities. He becomes aware of what makes him scared and what makes him happy and all this stuff, right? And that's what we all go through, right? But we don't just go through that as people from adolescence to adulthood. We do that with our creativity and with our mind and our visions, right? There's another level that you can go to with your vision that fits into the world.
Right, right. And how long did it take you to to embrace your full self and show up in these places that don't look like us, that and have that confidence to say, like, this is all of me.
Yeah.
These are all my powers.
Yeah. Like all heroes, I encountered a big bad enemy. A really bad enemy, called racism, a really bad one. And I had to transcend past that point. And so I had to go, okay, not accepted. Great. They don't want me to go this far. Great. Okay, they're gonna actively stop me. They're gonna make some bullshit happen, so I can't go further. I was like in shock, in pure shock, because I was so sure it was just like, I'm just gonna go straight up to the next level. And it did not happen. And so I had to stop and study and learn things and learn my rights, right? And learn, talk to some people. And the funniest thing was the people that helped me were people directly connected to my past, like to my grandparents. And to all the, all these different people, right? It was like, oh, I was surrounded with this information the whole time, but this is when it became relevant. And then I learned that I could create my own pathway.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, I guess that pressure, it's like a seed in the soil, right? It has a crack through the shell, and then it has a crack through the soil, and it's all grimy and nasty and wet and weird, and then it sprouts up, and then it sees the sun. It was kind of like that.
That's quite the journey.
It was a journey. But what I can say is, it's all worth it. In the end, you just kind of have to be like, okay, I'm going to get past this point where they won't let me in, right? It's like if you don't let me in the door, I'm gonna go to the wall and carve another one and let myself in. I'm gonna get the tools and do that.
How do you deal with it? How do you address it? How do you confront it? Do you confront it?
Mm-hmm.
There are times where you let it go. And what does that do to your soul and your mental health? And how do you cope with all that?
Yeah. Well, the number one answer is God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, having a higher power, there's no coincidence of why every old person in the world says that. Because what happens is there's a place where you're stuck and there are no answers. And it's horrible. There are no answers. You're stuck.
Yeah.
And then something comes along. It's like if you're in a dark tunnel and the rain is coming and you're wet and you're exhausted and you can't walk any longer, then somebody comes along. Doot, 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 doot. And look, there's a helper. There's somebody helping, or there's a piece of paper right there, or there's something, it really does happen. It's not just in the movies. Like, there are times in life where that you really get stuck and there's really just something there that calls to you, speaks to you, even if it's an inner voice or whatever, or a person walking down the street that just gives you the right information at the right time. And then slowly, from that super stuck place, you can build up to the and then that's when you learn that it's not just about people accepting you, and it's not just about people letting you in, and it's not just about all these different things. You really have a pathway that you are ordained to do, and regardless of what those people do to you, it will happen if you let it, if you don't give in to fear. Right? It's like, if you don't give in, not to rib the Harry Potter, but if you don't get into the big bad villain that says, oh, by the way, this is your destiny, forget about it. You just have to keep going. You have to find a way to keep going. Even if you have to, work a side job and keep going, or, do these things to keep going. But, you have to keep going. That is the way it happens.
You've been coding since you were 9.
Yes.
So you have seen the tech world and the tech culture evolve throughout time.
Yes.
I just wanted to talk briefly about nonviolent communication, right?
Yes.
And the intersectionality of gender in this very male dominated world
Yes.
can be very toxic, aggressive, a lot of backstabbing, people one-upping each other, and it's almost like that's rewarded, right?
Yeah.
So how do you combat that and create a kinder place to work?
Yeah. Well, how we're doing it is, we actually have team meetings about integrity and transparency and learning and creativity and all those things, right? We actually have active conversations about them. In your own team, you have to establish a culture. I actually have to give credit to I'm part of this women's group on Facebook that's all women founders. And it's so helpful to have a support group of people like you, people that you identify with and you share things with that are doing the same things as you.
Mm.
So I have different tech groups, different women groups, all those different things, different resources where I'm not just trying to like I just gave up on trying to convince my family about entrepreneurship, right? I just don't talk to them about it. But I have support groups all over the place where we talk about these things, right? And there's different places, and then we share resources. And one of the ladies that shared about building culture,
Mm.
and how she did it in her company. And I was very impressed by how she explained it. And so I said, yes, please send me your templates. Please do send me everything. But you really have to be very intentional about what you're building and what you're disrupting and what you're thinking about. And you really have to, it seems like these things are miraculous when you hear about, like an Airbnb or a LinkedIn or any of these companies. I work with a lot of them, or I'm in conferences with them or whatever. And what I can tell you is it's not magical. It's very intentional. There's somebody there looking at resources, planning, thinking, being strategic, doing all these different things, and they're building culture intentionally. They're building NBC intentionally. Like one of the things I admire about Microsoft is Satya Nadella taught about NBC, and
Mhm.
I was in shock, and I was like, that's what it is. There's something about, because I was like, what happened to Microsoft? This is not the Microsoft I remember. And why are you guys being so nice to me? And why are you being so supportive? It's really strange. I really had that reaction.
You're like, what is
I'm
happening?
like, well, this is not the one I remember. This is not the. I've been on Microsoft for the better part, almost 30 years. So I'm just going, this is not the company that I remember, right? And I even watched him on one of the broadcasting slates say, oh, I used to work for Microsoft. And Satya said, come back, come back to our company. He was just interrupting her. He didn't even let her say her speech. He was like, just come back. Are you going to come back and work for us? You should just come back, right? Because he had built this other culture, right? And they're still transitioning into
Hmm.
that culture, right? Gradually, I can see the different transitions and how they're building up their ecosystem. But you have to purposely construct those things. You have to give your team members books to read. You have to read books. You have to think about what you're building, because if you let it happen by accident, people just come in with their own baggage and they'll just pile the bag. It's like, if you have
Yeah.
people arriving at a train station, they'll just pile it right onto your company. Boom, 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 and then you're like, where did this come from? And that's because you don't have a baggage handler that organizes everything and puts it in the right place and
Yeah.
tells them, here's where you put your baggage and here's how you ride this train. And there is no, you don't just put your baggage anywhere. Here's what we do with this baggage, right? And
Yeah.
you have to do that, and that comes into, having a pro woman culture, having a pro sort of non-white culture, right? Having a culture for young people, having a culture for old people, having a culture for moms, having a culture for dads, having a culture that accepts people in different ways, right? You have to intentionally think about how that happens. And that happens, when you first meet them, that happens when you onboard them, that happens when you explain to them about their job every day, that happens in your team stand-ups, that happens in your check-ins. So we have different pieces, including software, that reinforce that. They
Mm.
reinforce that culture every week.
And let's talk about software a little bit and how it
Hmm.
could potentially perpetuate systemic racism.
Yes.
Because it's something that really concerns me is AI technology is built by flawed human beings who are using uh, one type of person to build the facial recognition um, algorithms that might recognize when someone is experiencing anger, right, or is experiencing a explosion or mania, right? And my we know that the ratios, like the facial expressions and the ratios of people of color are different, right? So like I have a wider nose, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you have a bigger lips, right, you might smile, and that could be perceived by this facial recognition technology as manic when really it's just a smile, right? Because
Right.
it's trained with very thin lips, right? So
Right.
how let me just doomsday scenario this, right? Let's say this facial recognition built to detect aggression or is sold to militarized police, right? Who then has motive to further persecute people of color.
Right. Right.
Um, is this like just am I completely going into science fiction? Is this possibly reality? And if so, what can we do? How can we organize to stop a potential scenario from becoming reality?
Yeah. I mean, part of it is a literacy issue, right? So part of it is we all really have to have some kind of technical literacy in our understanding of how these things work. Because the only way that feedback's going to get in there, the people who are doing these things are not going to welcome our feedback unless we can tell them how to change them or we can change them ourselves. It's just, if you have power, you're not going to want to share power most of the time.
Yep. Yep.
So, I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm really passionate about being an engineer is because I can say, I don't like that. Let's change this around here. And this is that. And what you're telling me is BS. That
Yeah.
it can't be changed or it won't be changed or whatever, right? I'm just gonna roll around you and do something different.
Mhm.
So I saw that recently with a company we work with who's great. But they did a weird thing with their Black Founders program that I didn't really enjoy, and that was because they weren't really picking Black founders that were super empowered
Mhm.
to support. They picked a few, but they mostly picked um, Black founders who were highly dependent on their program. And so it was interesting to me, and I've seen this happen a lot, right? With Black founders, with women founders, they'll pick the people who don't necessarily really know what they're doing, and they'll say, "Oh, by the way, we mentor them, knowing that they have a very low chance of being successful."
Mhm.
And they won't pick the ones that are likely to be successful
Mhm.
because they don't really want to share the power with those people.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I would say, and I think I talked to you about this over the phone, um, exploitation of people of color.
Yes,
And a lot of it is done under the umbrella and the premise of diversity and inclusion.
right.
So but really, if you're bringing, um, let's say, a Latina on, right, and you're actually not giving them any power, but you're just putting them in the front of the picture or behind the camera when you're giving your speech, you're
Yeah.
using that person to aggrandize your power.
Yeah,
Your
and then
own
it
life.
doesn't matter. Yeah, you don't care whether they're successful or not. You're just
Yeah,
like they're in the picture, so I did my job. And
yeah,
so
they're in the
that's
picture, and they're
yeah,
actually gonna grow my power even further, because then Latinas are gonna perceive me as caring about them, so they're going to buy my product, and so I'm gonna be even more powerful without ever actually giving up any of my power to this person and sharing the decision making.
right. And
Um,
sharing the ability to be the boss one day,
yeah, yeah,
right? To be the boss or be the person in power. And so that's why, I think a lot of us, our company included, and a lot of my colleagues, we're building our own ecosystems because there's really a clear understanding that they're not going to completely let us in. They're not going to graduate us to the top. They're not going to make us CEO. It's not going to happen. So we have to declare our sovereignty.
build your
And
own ladder.
yeah, we have to build our own ladder and build our own companies and build our own VCs and build our own banks and build our own everything, right? That will accept that and then be competitive, take them out, right? Period.
Yeah,
Right. So, I've seen companies recognize that this is a probability, and so they've changed because they know that this is a probability, that they will be taken out because of all the people coming into power and declaring their own power. That is happening. So, I've seen tech companies change, or I've seen them change partially or
yeah,
reluctantly change because
yeah,
they realize that everybody is not like software is not a secret. We all know how to program. We all have programmers in our midst. There's Latino programmers, there's African programmers, there's African American programmers, there's Asian American, there's South. Everybody, this stuff is spread out now thanks to the internet. Everything is everywhere. So if you don't think the everybody else is coming to eat your lunch, you are delusional. So, they know this is happening. So, we have a lot of corporate customers and a lot of corporate collaborators because of that reason. Because they just, my feeling is it's not necessarily that they want to see us be successful, even though some of the executives are women of color and people of color who do want to see us be successful. There are a lot of corporations where they greenlight this stuff because they don't want to get taken out.
yeah.
So better to be friends while we're coming up, better to be buddies with us while we're coming up and while we're growing, than have us grow up and then take you out. Because that has been known to happen in tech. It's been known to happen all over the world.
Yeah, and I think there are companies that are recognizing they have to step down, because the truth of the matter is, like, there's only so many board seats in a board. And if all of these seats are composed of white men, who are making decisions on behalf of women, on behalf of people of color, they don't have the life experience to understand uh, a great majority of the population.
Yeah, and not just that, to
Yeah,
maximize their profit. It's well
yeah,
known.
yeah, yeah,
If
for
women are
sure.
half the planet, and we are,
Yeah,
your
which I
profit is
think
not
is
maximized.
why
It's super dumb. It's dumb for your
entrepreneurs
shareholders, and it's dumb for your investors, and it's dumb for everybody.
and yeah,
So you have to maximize. You have to be ready to maximize your profit. So inclusion is the way to do that, right? And they said, I forgot what the figures are. I just was reading the McKinsey report on Black America. I've read ones on women, all kinds of ones from the Federal Reserve, been in meetings with the Federal Reserve, and everybody is aware that they have created a system that has shortchanged our economy,
yes,
meaning in America.
yes,
And it's a major problem. It has a shift, and that's why you see all these shifts happening so quickly. It's because we won't have a future unless that happens. Because uh, and we see this now, even who's people, because they've been left out of the economic equation. There's so many people sitting in the Midwest and sitting in rural America, and people that used to have factories in their towns and all these different things, because they've been left out. That's when people get desperate, right? And that's when they get violent, and that's when they get weird, and that's when they get racist, and that's when they do all these things. They become tribal because they don't have access to opportunity. Their access to opportunity, they would just be in their little areas and be fine.
Yeah.
But because
Yeah.
they don't have opportunity, right? So now you have two things going on. You have, people have been disenfranchised from the economic situation, people have been disenfranchised by economics and systemic racism, and now you see this crash collision course going on right now.
Yeah. 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 And I think the
Right.
figure, by the way, from the McKinsey report, so at least for gender, taking action to address gender disparity could result in 12 trillion increase in the global GDP. 12
Yeah.
trillion. This is not charity here. When you invest in founders of color, they produce greater returns. And I think it has to do with the fact that they're solving problems in undercrowded markets, right? So
Yep.
when you invest in one type of person, they solve one type of problem, right?
Exactly. And
And
that goes back to that each of us have a role to play, right? And
yeah,
so then recognizing and help potentialize all those people in the world will create a more productive, effective, better world.
but I want to bring it back to how might we achieve this power shift, right? So, for instance, Reddit, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
Alexis Ohnehan resigned, so that the CEO of Y Combinator, Michael Sable, could take his seat on the board. So he recognized it was a profitable thing to do for Reddit because diversity equals increased profitability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he also recognized that for there to be greater equity, he had to step down, right? Do you think there's going to be other board members of big publicly traded companies that might take the initiative of saying, yeah, we need to share this power?
Yeah, there's two answers to that. One is in California, it is or it soon will be illegal for there to be all white male boards. So there's that.
I'm
So
moving
yeah,
very soon.
yes,
I'm kidding.
yes,
I love
because
this.
they
This
have
is
to.
pretty great.
Yes, because it's the law. And so goes California, so goes the world, right? There's that
Yeah.
there's that aspect. So once that case law is established, and once there's one or two places that do that, then it's going to happen. So that I feel good about. The other thing is, I think yes, because I think the boomers have realized, it's time to hand it over, right? It's like, let's not all just hang on to everything until we die, because the world's getting crazy and not in the way that is a good thing, not in a
Yeah.
good way. So I think that, the writings on the wall is just sort of obvious, painfully obvious. I mean, I get a conservative uh, money magazine newsletter, and two, I was laughing at the headlines last night because it said billionaires are in a panic. Billionaires are in a panic because of X, X, and X, and billionaires are in a panic because of this, this, and this, because all this different change happening, right? And you even see it in the rapper situation with who, right? So people are in a panic over taxes, and oh God, I got to contribute, and oh, the system's changing, and all these different things, and it's just like, yes,
You
you
do have
know,
to contribute. When
you do
I
have to
teach my
contribute, and
classes,
yes, you have to step down.
yes,
It's time.
yes, and this
It's
is
like,
a
yes.
True Entrepreneurs is a 501c3 nonpartisan nonprofit. So what I'm about to say are my own personal opinions, which I can indulge in thanks to my First Amendment rights. But I will say that when we live in a world where I pay more taxes than the president of the United States,
Right.
right? We can't claim for this to be an equitable world, right?
Right.
Where we're all paying our fair share. We're not.
Right.
We're not. Some of us are finding loopholes and tax havens, or by some of us, I mean some of them. So to aggrandize their riches on the backs of hardworking Americans, right? but that's all I'll say about that, because I want to keep it really relevant. And just to go off that, so one last thing I'd love to get your comments on is, so I'm a bit afraid that there's been a lot of irresponsible behavior um, on behalf by equity investors,
Yeah.
Who have,
Understatement.
with their investments, they've
Yeah.
invested in things that to begin with didn't even have a projection of profitability in the long term. And then, but they were okay with doing that because they knew they could sell to another, and another, and another, and another.
Right.
And a portion of pension investment, which is really where the wealth of this nation is concentrated, has gone to this VCs. And my fear is that when we see all these irresponsible investments crash,
right,
like WeWork, uh, what's going to happen to the teachers who have saved pennies and pennies at a time? So speaking about like building your wealth on the backs of poor, hardworking people, right? Like teachers pensions. Like, is that something to be concerned with? And how can people who contribute to pensions hold their investment officers and VCs accountable for the way that they're handling their money?
Yeah. So I did write a letter once to some people that I was in business with, and my lawyers and so on and so forth, about that particular issue. And I said, I cannot participate in this particular part of the market because I know what's coming. And I will not participate in this part of this market. And I want to know where you stand on that issue. And you know, the response was sort of like, make hay while the sun shines. Like, it's happening now and it's fine. Um, it's just like the 2008 crash and previous crashes, and even
Except
for who being in office, right? Or if you watch The Big Short,
yeah,
people don't see, people are very short-sighted, and they panic, right? So then they wait till this is, I mean, even, I'm not a super religious person, but even if you look in the Bible, you read it from cover to cover, it's the same dang on story over and over again. Everybody waits till the last minute. They don't heed the warning. They go through the craziness, and then they try to fix it after.
yeah.
And then you're like, oh, we've been doing this the whole time. So my prayer for us right now is that we will have enough of a leap between our generation and the millennials and behind us to accelerate these conversations so that we don't hit the big bad emergencies. We've hit some of them already, but we don't hit more. We don't hit more of them because previous generations and those in power are just like, I'm just gonna make hay while the sun shines. I'm old and I'll be gone in 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. So we gotta. So I think this is the fight we're under right now.
Well, what can we do to stop it? Like, I mean, I think the difference with the 2008 crash is, like, quite frankly, like, very few people saw it coming. Like, whereas
I saw it coming.
You saw it coming?
Oh yeah, because I'll tell you, because my business partner and I were about to invest in some real estate, and we were talking to them about the mortgages and talking to our mortgage brokers and talking to bankers and all this stuff about what was happening. And I was like, this is not, if you just did the math, it didn't make any sense.
Did you short the market, Murray?
No, I did not. I am not a big believer. I know it's sacrilege. I'm not a big believer in public markets as they exist today. I think they need massive reforms, and that's just probably another discussion for another time.
For sure.
But I would say,
That's going to be our next 2-hour conversation.
yeah, I exited the market, the
Yeah.
real estate market, quickly when I found out what was going on, because and I had a colleague that worked for Countrywide, which was one of the biggest violators.
Yeah.
And it just, you put two and two together, you do the math, it just didn't make any sense. They have a similar right now. There's a similar car bubble going on, and then the big one is the retirement bubble.
Ay, Dios mío.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we have to have some other systems in place. I mean, the good news is, we're in this creator economy, we're in this maker economy. Clearly, I don't think our generation or other generations are going to be able to depend on traditional retirement. So we need to come up with other systems, and those things are being created. I do see them being created.
Yeah.
I just hope that they can get creative fast enough to where there's not, 10 million people wondering where their next meal is going to come from, like we have today.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm particularly worried about immigrant communities and people of color who have not had the multi-generational capability of building wealth,
Right.
because Black Wall Street, right? A Black
Right.
retirement funds were
And
crashed.
just
Yeah,
lack of knowledge, right? Just
yeah,
no knowledge, right? And where does this knowledge come from? I always, that's why I say I really have to keep thanking the grace of God for some of the things I've learned in my life, because if I had gone a traditional route as a Afro Latina primarily in this world, I would have never known. There's so many things I would have known, right? But I had some other circumstances sort of intervene in my life. So, you know, I think it's important that we, share with each other, because there are some of us that really do know a lot about what's going on, and some of us don't know. And then, there has to be forums like this where there's listening and there's learning, there's teaching, there's sharing, and all that sort of stuff.
so let's say what can you do? Because I feel like so much of it is like, so we know this is happening, but like, what can I do? You
Yeah,
know?
you have to build new systems. I mean, we have to build new ways of being, new life patterns, new ways of living, new
Yeah.
ways of financing things. I mean, there are literally people who are building all kinds of new banking systems. There are people who are building new currencies. There are people who are building.
Oh no, I froze. Marie, either you or I are frozen. I think it's the Wi-Fi.
I've tried.
You're back. I think you're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Awesome.
Okay. So I was just saying, if there's a revolutionary or a movement, we've sort of tracked it. There's lots of new things coming on the horizon. It's just, the gaps. The gaps are the issue.
Yeah, yeah.
The gaps are, do we have capacity to help the world? Do we have capacity to get to this community, that community? Do we have capacity to do these certain things? So, there's just a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of people to help.
Yeah. And with that, I'd like to close and just talk about, the most revolutionary thing you can do is vote.
That's
Um,
right. That's what
because
you can do today.
it quantifies our numbers. And
Yeah,
guess what? The word for everything that isn't white is not minority.
that's right. You notice I did not use that word.
I'm so glad you didn't, because I want it to be renamed power, right?
Yeah,
I want that for future legislators to be afraid, quite frankly, of insulting women and people of color, and knowing they can get away with it,
right.
and thinking they can get away with it. Like,
Yep.
that's not, again, my personal Juliana opinions here, not street entrepreneurs. I do not represent my employer. Okay, but in all seriousness, I think voting is not a partisan thing. Go vote, And whoever you vote for, I wish you're able to sleep with it at night. And yes,
Yes.
that's that. And regardless of who wins, we have a lot of healing to do in this country.
Yeah.
And I for one, think the process has already begun. So
Yeah.
I'm
Me too.
grateful you're here. I'm also grateful you were able to share some really practical tools for small business owners, who are confounded by how to use technology to operate their business. I didn't read you a question because you answered it, but I wanted you to kind of see. So someone wrote us and said, I'm older and I operate an Ethiopian bodega. I did not grow up using technology, and this has been very useful. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you
So
so much.
thank you, Mari. Thank you very, very, very
You're
much.
welcome.
Awesome. So again, this workshop is for those of you who are like, I just want to do my business, and yes, I need tech tools. Show me something simple I can use. This is for you. Okay, that's all. Any final words of wisdom?
Stay the course.
Deal.
Stay the course.
I'll talk to you soon.
All
And if
right.
you're watching this and you haven't voted and you can vote, go vote.
Vote.
Now. Bye.
Thank you.